Huh? Could it be Megan? A high-pitched voice reached my ears. No way, that couldn't be. Oh, I thought so. Megan, it's been a while, hasn't it? A man and a woman waving at us approached as we shopped. It was my sister, Vanessa, and Nathan, my former fiancé. Vanessa, what are you doing here? Oh, didn't I tell you? He got transferred here, and now we live in a luxury condo nearby. Compared to that, you seem quite poor. While saying this, Vanessa scrutinized my husband, George, from head to toe. Indeed, through Vanessa's eyes, George in his work clothes might appear that way. However, when you say a luxury condo, do you mean the one between this mall and the station, that one? Oh, that condo is actually mine. George said casually, as if it was the most natural thing. What? What did you just say? Well, if you talk about a condo in this city, that's the only one there is. So, it's mine. What do you mean? Exactly as I said. There was a deal to build on one of the pieces of land we've owned for a while, and it sold unexpectedly well. Thanks to that, the land value went up and now the taxes are a nightmare. After saying that, George invited the two to our farm. And as soon as we got back to the car, he quickly phoned home. Hello, Mom? It's me. Yes, finally I got them, so it's time to put our plan into action. Apparently, something was happening that I didn't know about. My name is Megan. I'm a stay-at-home mom with 2 children, married to George, who is 4 years older than me. I married into a family that runs a farm, enjoying happy days now. But my life before marrying my current husband was always about losing something. I was born the middle child of 3 sisters. Vanessa, my sister 3 years older, has always been the darling of the family since she was little, pretty, handy, and quick-witted. She effortlessly did well in school, always shining in elementary and junior high schools. On the other hand, I was quite plain compared to Vanessa, with mediocre grades. Mom always said to me, "You're so plain and unremarkable, it's not worth dressing you up." She would then indulge Vanessa with new clothes incessantly, unconditionally showering her with gifts. I didn't develop well physically, so I always wore Vanessa's hand-me-downs. Our elementary school had no uniforms, so I often heard classmates comment on how flashy or ill-fitting my clothes were. I was often asked why I wore clothes that didn't suit me, but I somewhat disliked saying, "It's all I have." But perhaps the friends had been told something by their parents too. Eventually, they stopped talking about it. Even with studies, Dad often sighed and told me, "Why don't you try to emulate your sister a bit with your studies?" Though from about the upper grades of elementary school, I was diligent with my homework and even prepped in advance. I knew I was slow, which is why I tried to do what I could properly. But that didn't mean I could immediately get good grades. I grew up constantly sighing, and then came the time for further education. "You'll only go to high school," Dad stated flatly. "What? Why?" "Vanessa wants to go to college in New York." "You don't have great grades, and it's fine, isn't it?" The issue was our age difference. Being 3 years apart meant our educational phases overlapped. Covering the expenses for both of us at the same time was a challenge for my parents. As a result, Vanessa went to the private high school she wanted, and I ended up in public school. After that, Vanessa said she wanted to attend a private university in New York. New York, that's a plane ride away. And the cost of living there is just on another level. Living there alone. It was already decided among my parents that they would cut down on expenses for me. Rather, it meant that I should start working early and contribute money to the family. And my youngest sister, Sarah, who is 4 years younger, often just watched me silently. In a life filled with sighs, without any particular aspirations, I graduated high school and got a job at a local agricultural cooperative. I was basically an office worker. Moreover, it's a rural area, and the people here are completely disconnected from any sort of fashion sense. Some parts still carry an atmosphere from decades past, while others are strangely high-tech. Dealing with these people might be monotonous. But it suited me just fine. Well, a place Vanessa would probably hate to death. Then before I knew it, 7 years swiftly passed, and at the young age of 25, I was already considered an experienced colleague at this workplace where people tend to marry early. It was then that I unexpectedly met a man. I was invited by a younger colleague to a mixer, and I met Nathan, a salesperson from one of our clients. Surprisingly, we hit it off well and soon started dating. The relationship progressed unbelievably smoothly, and he proposed in less than a year, with plans to marry 6 months later. But as our wedding plans were being finalized, Vanessa, who was supposed to be working for a company in New York after graduating, quit her job and returned home. Oh, I can't stand that company anymore. Well, if you say so, it must be true. You must be tired. Just take it easy for now. Every day, my parents would give Vanessa pocket money and take her out, and generally, they seemed to be having a great time with her lounging around and doing nothing. Then one day, "What? You're getting married?" "Ah, yes. That's right. I need to check out this guy for myself," Vanessa said with a smirk. "I don't need you to do that." "What? You can't listen to your sister?" Saying that, she grabbed my hair and harshly pulled my cheek. Eventually, Vanessa attended the meeting at the wedding venue. We had many decisions to make, but Nathan seemed distracted that day. I had a bad feeling about it, and a few days later, Vanessa blurted out, "Nathan will be mine." "But, the wedding, we've even booked the venue." When I retorted, my parents sided with Vanessa. "Well, it can just be Vanessa instead of you." "Right. It doesn't change much between the families, and we haven't sent the invitations yet." I couldn't comprehend what they were saying. They wanted to use the wedding, half of which I paid for, instead for Vanessa and Nathan. I confronted Nathan with an intensity and vigor that was unusual for me. "I'm sorry, but I have to take responsibility," he said. Apparently, he couldn't refuse Vanessa's advances. I was shocked to find out he was that kind of person, but I was more unforgivable toward Vanessa. But being unforgivable didn't mean I could do anything about it at that time. Especially since my parents were unequivocally favoring Vanessa. If that happens, there was nothing I could do. "If that's the case, you just have to leave here." At that time, Sarah, who had just graduated from a local university, said softly to me, "Megan, you don't have to stay here forever. Staying here, you'll just continue to lose everything." Her words changed something in me. "Right, there's no real reason I have to stay here. Don't worry about me. I'm managing better than you are." She said that, encouraging me. Immediately, I informed my boss, Taylor, that my wedding was abruptly cancelled and discussed my resignation. Taylor got surprised and listened to the entire story of what had happened that day. Then, instead of resigning, he suggested a transfer. He felt it would be a waste to let go of someone who had worked so diligently and had skillfully managed relationships with the local farmers. I gratefully accepted the offer and moved, taking only my personal belongings before their wedding. Living alone, transferred to a new workplace, I finally felt like I could breathe freely, away from that family. The city I moved to was slightly smaller than my hometown, but still a significant regional city. Feeling more at ease, I started interacting more with my colleagues. And then, there was another mixer, but I was completely over the idea of marriage. However, I went just for a sense of duty. "They asked you to come this time," my colleague told me. The partners this time were heirs to neighboring farms. Marriage and farming families can be quite stringent. That's how I was introduced to my current husband, George, who had been interested in me for a while. I knew him as a client, but nothing more. Pushed by my colleagues, I decided to date him, and George turned out to be hearty and fun. I was also taken to his home several times. Wow, this is amazing. It's pretty normal around here though. His family owned expansive land, half of it for livestock and the other half for crops. This family was large and very open-hearted. They served fresh and delicious food whenever I visited, and there was constant laughter. Seeing my occasional bewilderment at such a harmonious family atmosphere, they casually asked me about it. I'm just surprised to see a family that gets along so well. I ended up sharing my past experiences with my parents and Vanessa, as matter-of-factly as possible. Then they reacted. "That's awful. Not just the sister, but also the guy and your parents. Leaving them was the right choice." "That's right. So come and be part of our family." I had always felt guilty about being rejected by a man. But this generous family seemed genuinely angry at the unreasonable behavior of my parents, Vanessa, and Nathan. When they quickly said, "Come and stay with us," I wouldn't be sure about it. Somehow, I just found myself saying yes, in response. Becoming a farmer's wife? I hardly had time to consider it. So, I called my parents to at least inform them. Marrying into a farming family? That's embarrassing, I wouldn't attend. They refused even to come to the wedding. Hearing this, my mother-in-law snatched the phone from me and retorted, "We don't need anything from your side either. Megan will be our daughter now," with refreshing determination. What about those people? Really? Megan, you don't have to do anything for them anymore. I used to send them money, but I guess they'll complain if I stop. You were doing that too? My in-laws, half in disbelief and half angry, seemed to make up their minds about something. Sarah kept in touch and told me, "Let me know when you set the date for the ceremony." Indeed, the only family member who attended my wedding was Sarah. Later on, when Sarah got married, I made sure not to meet my parents, but I did go to celebrate her wedding. After my own marriage, I continued to work at the cooperative for a while. That's because both George and my in-laws told me that it would be impossible to start working on the farm right away. You're not used to the physical demands yet. It's better if you do what suits you, they said. It also turned out that my presence at the cooperative made the workflow smoother. Yet, those days came to a rather abrupt end. I got pregnant. One, and then another a year later. With the momentum I felt, I decided to quit my job to focus on raising the children, doing housework, and helping with the bookkeeping. Although the farm required early mornings and late nights, there was always someone around, making it much more manageable than the single parenting stories I heard about in the city. And the food was delicious. We cooked in large quantities, and everything from flour to vegetables to milk was just delicious. The kids ate well and ran around a lot, growing up carefree along with the children of George's younger brother, who had married before us. George was considered a leader among the young heirs in the region, so I began to join their gatherings. Without being compared to anyone and away from the gaze of my parents, I finally felt truly happy. Then one day, encouraged by my in-laws, George and I went to a shopping mall, just the two of us. Really? Are you sure? There was something we wanted you to pick up. They were probably concerned that we rarely had time just for ourselves. Feeling the kindness of this family was already a great comfort. We leisurely drove to the shopping mall. As we approached, the landscape began to fit the description of an urban area. We loaded 2 shopping carts with requested items and other things, strolling through the spacious mall and chatting leisurely when. Could it be Megan? A high voice reached my ears. No way, that couldn't be. Oh, I thought so. Megan, it's been a while, hasn't it? A man and a woman approached us, while waving their hands. Vanessa. I murmured softly, gripping the handle of the cart tightly. Hey, long time no see. Beside her was Nathan? He seemed quite aged, though. Vanessa, why are you here? Oh, didn't I tell you? He got transferred here. We live in that luxury condo nearby now. Compared to that, you seem quite poor. As she said this, Vanessa scrutinized George from head to toe. Indeed, from Vanessa's perspective, George in his work clothes might look that way. And I was in my everyday clothes too. However, speaking of the condo, do you mean the one between this mall and the station, that one? George suddenly spoke up. Yes, that one. You guys couldn't afford it, I bet. It's really popular now, even people from outside have a hard time getting in. We waited and finally got a place. Of course, it's none of your business since you're just rural folks. Ah, that condo is mine, actually. George said nonchalantly, as if it was the most natural thing. What? What did you just say? Well, if you talk about a condo in this city, that's the only one. So, it's mine. What do you mean? Exactly as I said. There was a deal to build on one of the pieces of land we've owned for a while, and it sold unexpectedly well. Thanks to that, the land value went up, and now the taxes are a nightmare. Taxes? I recalled seeing unusually high property taxes when I helped with the bookkeeping. I had wondered why, since taxes around our area were not that significant, but now it made sense. Oh, is that so? Ah, right. Would you like to come over to our place after this? I turned towards George in shock. Really? Is that okay? Then, Vanessa's demeanor suddenly changed. Hey, wait, it's kind of sudden to just drop in. What are you talking about? They've kindly invited us. It would be rude not to go. Our shopping was abruptly paused, and we decided to head out to our place by respective cars. Back at the car, George immediately called home as he settled into the driver's seat. Hello, Mom? It's me. Yes, I finally got them, so it's time to put our plan into action. What was he talking about? He hung up after those brief words. A plan? Yeah. Well, we have our reasons. I didn't even know you owned that condo. It's like insurance. George explained. Even we depend a lot on nature for farming, so it gets tough. We've owned that land around there for generations. So, you built the condo? Kind of half. Not entirely. It's a great spot with a scenic view, which attracts people from outside. That much was true. Even if the view was just fields and mountains, the vastness made each season impressively scenic. People with money from outside might find it appealing. Do you want to live there? I immediately shook my head. I like our home best. Everyone's there. Me too. With that, we headed home, driving along. During the drive, George shared a surprising plan with me. Can we really do that? You know the unity of our family, right? Plus, we're good at following through with plans. That was true. But still. Looking at Vanessa and her husband following us in the rearview mirror, I wondered if it could really work. When we arrived home, my in-laws greeted us at the door with, well, welcome, their usual, no. More than usual, cheerful smiles ready for the sister and her husband. Is it okay, over there? At this time, there should still be work to be done in the fields and with the cattle. It's fine. We knew we were having important guests. As soon as Vanessa entered the house, she started looking around curiously. She seemed surprised by how spacious the house was. Well, it really is quite large. Many people and households are living here. We eat together, but each family has its own space. Wow, and to think I've only met her younger sister. I had no idea Megan had such a beautiful older sister. My father-in-law said with a hearty laugh. Meanwhile, I was in the kitchen preparing something to serve our guests. It's better you don't go there right now. Just watch from here for a bit. My mother-in-law suggested, pointing to a chair in the kitchen. Wondering what that meant, I sat as instructed and kept an eye on the living room from my position. At the sofa, my father-in-law and George were seated, offering my sister Vanessa and her husband some homemade sweets. While my mother-in-law prefaced with a modest, we don't have much, but... Indeed, from the spot my mother-in-law directed me to, I could clearly see them. And importantly, they couldn't see me. As he opened a beer, my father-in-law casually mentioned, so I hear you're living in our condo now. Yes, they replied. Oh, speaking of the condo. He hinted to George with a gesture, signaling him to bring something up. Right, just a moment. George said and retrieved an envelope from a cupboard in the living room. Well, there's something concerning the condo that I'd like to discuss with you, or rather you, Nathan, George started. What might that be? Nathan tilted his head in response to George's words. This right here. George said, handing over a large document envelope. Nathan began to pull out the contents but stopped abruptly. Instead, he pulled out several photos which were put on an album. This is... Nathan's expression froze as he looked up. Yeah. We've been notified by the administrator of the condo about a suspicious person caught on the security cameras recently. When we received the data, I recognized someone, so we looked into it a bit, George explained. Nathan silently flipped through the album pages until he inadvertently dropped them on the floor in shock. What the... What? Who is this, Vanessa? Nathan asked Vanessa in a groaning voice. As I wondered what was happening, my mother-in-law silently tapped my shoulder and handed me the stack of photos. I nearly exclaimed out loud but quickly covered my mouth with my hand. The photos showed Vanessa letting an unknown man into a room, the two of them visible through a window. And scenes of them entering a hotel in broad daylight and later emerging together. How? Why are these here? It's secret. My mother-in-law whispered, her tone somewhat gleeful. I redirected my gaze back to the living room and saw Nathan glaring intensely at Vanessa. Was that you kept saying you didn't need kids because of this? What? That's absurd. It's not me. Well, we've already confirmed with the administrator that the guy came to the condo just to see you. As Vanessa panicked, George pressed on. Then what about these other photos? Well, those. Well, cheating isn't good, right? My father-in-law chimed in leisurely. You took a man from your sister and yet you still want another one? How old are you again? I think. Megan said you were 3 years older. Megan. Megan made you take this? The issue isn't there, George said. Nathan tried to return the envelope to George as a thank. Oh, it's okay. You just keep it. There might be some documents in there that you'll need, George said. Huh? Nathan peered inside and pulled out a large piece of paper. These might be needed after all, he remarked. Wait a minute, a petition of divorce of marriage? Suddenly what? As Vanessa panicked, Nathan began to speak calmly in a low voice. At that time, you told me to take responsibility, saying you weren't having your period. I thought I got you pregnant and decided to marry you because of it. But guess what? What do you mean? I apparently had a fling with you while drunk. I didn't remember it. But there were signs. So, considering what came after, I thought I should take responsibility. But you weren't pregnant, and what happened next? You kept saying you didn't want kids. How old are you? Aren't you almost 40? I'm only 35. Don't say such awful things. I believed your words about wanting to raise one child carefully. So, I worked hard, improved my sales, relocated, and even got that condo. You wanted that condo so badly, so we waited for it to be available and took out a loan for it. But you keep saying you're not satisfied with a lower floor, always complaining. So, that's what she was saying. I'm tired of it all, Nathan said. With that, George efficiently grabbed a ballpoint pen from his pocket. And Nathan calmly began filling out the petition for divorce of marriage with the pen. Wait, what are you doing? Besides, at our wedding, because of your parents' selfish actions, no one came, right? Not even my parents. So, that's what happened. My parents haven't forgiven me to this day. You seemed happy not dealing with the in-laws' troubles, but... Oh, you had made your parents sad. That's been quite tough. I was even told not to come to my brother's wedding. With a contorted face, Nathan spat out. Perhaps he looked older due to the stress. I've grown tired of this situation. Haven't you had enough of me too, Vanessa? The way things are. That's not true. I can't live without you. Because you can't manage on your own. You haven't worked since we got married. But I don't care anymore. With that, Nathan thrust the filled petition for divorce of marriage in front of Vanessa. Look. No, I don't want to. If you don't want to, that's fine. I'm going home now. By the way, George, this envelope is from the detective agency, right? Yes. I made sure to thoroughly investigate for the safety measures of the condo I own. That's solid evidence. Thank you. Nathan said this and then expressed his gratitude. Please let me know later how much it cost. I'll pay you back in full. Also, Vanessa, I will be selling that condo, so you gotta move out soon. I don't have money to do that. Faced with the fact that she can't live in that condo anymore, Vanessa was thrown into disarray. If that's the case, you can just go back to your hometown, where you can easily make money from men, right? I'm busy from now on. So I'm heading home. You're leaving. What about me? Ask your sister for help. With that, Nathan picked up the envelope and stood up to leave. He glanced at me and said bye, and left. Wait a minute. Vanessa hurriedly stood up and tried to follow Nathan, who was heading outside. But there was a difference in their leg length. There was no way Vanessa could catch up with Nathan as he seriously picked up his pace. We also quietly followed the two of them. Wait. Don't leave me behind. Perhaps due to the usual lack of exercise, or maybe because of her shoes, Vanessa stumbled and fell. Ouch. Somehow, she managed to get up and tried to chase after him. What? Where's my car? Now it was Nathan's turn to raise his voice. Then, oh, if you're looking for that car, I moved it because it was in the way. A casual voice came from afar, along with the sound of machinery. It was my brother-in-law on a tractor. What? Where is it now? Over there. He pointed in the direction a few hundred meters away where their car was parked. Nathan headed in that direction, striding irritably. Vanessa chased after him, panting heavily. But just then. Woof, woof. Ah. Our dogs ran towards Vanessa. What, these dogs? Sorry, they're just very friendly to new visitors. George spoke up, coming out casually. If you run away awkwardly, they'll just chase you more. But it seemed Vanessa wasn't listening to George. No, stop it, please. Vanessa didn't necessarily dislike dogs. But she might not have been immune to dogs running outdoors. She disliked getting dirty. And now, with our dogs, who are always running around the farm and are full of energy. Hey, Nathan. Help me. Nathan briefly turned at her cry but soon faced forward again and continued walking towards his car. Woof, woof. The dogs were getting closer to Vanessa, looking quite excited. Well, that figures. To someone who's not fond of dogs, these happily panting creatures must seem like monsters. And as I watched this from a distance. Stop it. No. Vanessa cried out as she tripped and fell again while trying to change direction and move forward. Yikes. She screamed from the bottom of her stomach. What is this? It smells. She had landed in a fluffy pile of cow manure compost that was heaped up. It was probably warm on top, still fermenting. Are you hurt? Came the carefree voice of my brother-in-law again. Two dogs had climbed on the fallen Vanessa and were licking her face. But Vanessa, in a daze, seemed to have lost the energy even to protest. Well, that makes sense. She was dressed to go out, after all, and ended up plunging headfirst into the pile. I don't know how much her outfit cost, but from her head to her face, from her chest to her belly to her limbs. She was buried in compost all at once, making it hard to find a spot that wasn't covered. The dogs, undeterred, continued to play and bark around her, rubbing against Vanessa enthusiastically. Damn, guess I have no choice. Seeing Vanessa in a daze, Nathan, albeit reluctantly, drove his car closer to help. Come on, let's go. Don't cause any more trouble for these folks. Even Nathan couldn't just stand by and watch her miserable state. He grabbed a relatively clean part of Vanessa's clothing and dragged her into the back seat of his car. Well, I guess he wouldn't want her sitting next to him, right? That's going to be a hassle later on. Watching from afar and half sympathizing, we saw off Nathan as he drove away from the scene. Later that evening, the condo administrator called. Man, that smell was terrible. Indeed, that was quite unfortunate. Make sure you bill them for the house cleaning. Of course. Even though this area is known for livestock farming, the people who live in this downtown condo are mostly not used to it. And it caused quite a stir among the residents today. It wasn't just the entrance and the hallways. Even the parking lot was terribly affected by the smell. Listening in speaker mode, smirking expression had me feeling a mix of exasperation and relief. Honestly, living here all the time, I had forgotten. But surely the sight of someone covered in compost in the middle of the city would be quite terrible. Especially for someone like Vanessa who prides herself on her appearance. The complaints from the upper floors were especially bad. We'll try to address this as quickly as possible. Right. Oh, and that couple is probably going to divorce, so handling this quickly might also help push that along. Right. If they decide to leave, it would really be a relief for us. After hanging up the phone, the family around me gave a thumbs up as if to say, good job. It seems this was quite a long setup. Apparently, the fact that they moved into this condo was influenced by my family. In this region, companies are somehow related to agriculture. And there's frequent communication among farmers. Now that my family knew about my circumstances, they seemed to have been checking up on my sister and parents who had treated me cruelly. And they had circulated information to them about the condo, saying, it's on the second floor, but it's cheap because it's used. It was obvious that Vanessa would jump at the word luxury condo. Well, even so, we didn't know when we'd meet them. George explained this to me. So, when we saw them, the plan was carried on. Just like that. The family showed me their happy smiles. Meanwhile, the dogs who had come up to the house barked once. Oh, these guys. I had no choice but to laugh. Later on, I received a call from Sarah informing me that Vanessa had officially decided to divorce. It was just terrible. Sarah reported to me, laughing heartily. Vanessa had left her parents' home after getting married, and now Sarah and her husband were in charge. Indeed, the fact that the wedding was taken by Vanessa from me had significantly tarnished my parents' reputation. Using that to her advantage, Sarah had adopted a humble attitude of a sorry for our terrible parents to win over those around her and had apparently succeeded in taking control of the house. In this situation, Vanessa tried to return after her own infidelity led to a divorce. There's no way we could let her back in the house after all the effort we've put into getting our parents under control. Bringing back another parasite is out of the question. Sarah had made a firm decision not to let her back into the house, visibly demonstrating her resolve to everyone around. Having good daily habits is so important, isn't it? So what happened to Vanessa? I don't know. Oh, and by the way, the reason Vanessa left her previous job was because she couldn't handle the work and there were some inappropriate romantic entanglements. This was news to me. After being a homemaker for so long and now another divorce due to an affair, what kind of job can she even get? It's probably just the night business for her now, right? But that might actually suit her. Sarah. Yet, Nathan had said the same thing. Hey, Megan. I used to get so frustrated watching Vanessa. But really, with such awful parents and a sister, it couldn't end any other way, right? Well. Right. That's why I was able to use them as a negative example early on. Thanks to that, I now hold the real power in our family. I found myself oddly convinced by that. From now on, you can relax. Forget about here and just let yourself be pampered and happy over there.
Yeah.
Thanks. I'll come to visit next time. Yeah, I'll be waiting. Nearly a year later. As promised, although a bit delayed, Sarah visited my house. Megan, congratulations on your third child. After that, I got pregnant with my third child and had the baby. Today was a celebration for that. Thank you. I heard you're expecting your second child, Sarah?
Yeah.
That's right. We plan to stop at 2, but are you thinking of having more? Yes. Here, the kids can grow up freely without any favoritism, and it's really wonderful. Indeed, the older children were looking after the younger ones, and the little ones were always searching for something they could do on their own. I was a bit worried that I would be like my parents. But with this place and this family, I believe we can live happily without such fears. That's what I believe.